So, a lot of people have been complaining that the new patch is basically a bunker fest. And I think that's probably because people just don't know how to do damage anymore. So, I'm going to show you guys an oldie but goodie. This is Core Guardian, but this is the new version of Core Guardian. This is an adaptation to the new evolving meta where damage is kind of a little bit more scarce, but damage is also more permanent. So what this means is that sustain is more valuable and DPS is also more valuable. So basically, this results in the Berserker amulet being used on Core Guardian. This is just the core virtues, Radiance, Valor, meditation setup, and obviously you still want to use Link's rune because that gives you your movement speed. You still don't get movement speed on Guardians yet. I use cleansing energy on sword focus and energy exposure on greatsword. The reason for double energy is just because Core Guardian is a very burst oriented spec, so in between your bursts you kind of want to use dodges to stall for time. And yeah, that's kind of the reason there. If you want to take more damaging sigils you could, but honestly you won't see that big of a difference there. But dodges are a very heavy mitigation. So, and obviously Guardians have very few dodges, right? They have, especially with Core Guardian, right, you only have Aegis as a hard mitigation, and that's only one hit, right? It's not like DH where you have like a durational block which can block many attacks. So yeah, a hard mitigation is a dodge, so giving dodges to Core Guardian is always good. And obviously you're going to take Unscathed Contender because you want all the damage modifiers you can right now. So like power is not as valuable as ferocity and modifiers now, so this is really good. Obviously it's not like you take anything else here, but I take Absolute Resolution still, but you can take the new Inspiring Virtue, which gives you 10% damage for 6 seconds after activating a virtue, because you usually use your F1 right before you burst, so you get a lot of damage. But the thing is, Absolute Resolution gives you pretty good team fight presence, because you cleanse your whole team of 3 Condis. That can be massive in a lot of situations, whereas just a damage boost isn't really like a playmaking kind of thing, right? So I really like Absolute Resolution for that because it's more team oriented, and also it makes your passive heal a little bit stronger. So when you have it activated, it's a 105 heal per second, and when you don't have the trait on, it's actually it's an 84. So it's like kind of like it's 4/5 of what it could be if you don't have it traded. So it's not amazing, right? But it is something, right? Like I just said, sustain is pretty important, but damage is also important, right? So they're both really good. I just prefer Absolute Resolution. And yeah, so obviously you want a stun break on your F3. That's still pretty valuable, right? Stability is pretty scarce, so AoE stability is insane. And in Radiance, you're still taking Radiance because Zeal is not really comparable at all. All the traits in Zeal, they kind of are like symbol oriented, and it's more like DPS. I just said that it, like DPS is good, but like it's more of like kind of like a bunkery build would want Zeal, like the symbol brand build. Radiance is kind of like just DPS that doesn't require you to stand in your symbols, right? So it's more burst oriented DPS, right? So you definitely want Radiance over Zeal. Yeah, it's more like mobile DPS, right? And Core Guardian is like a mobile kind of like damage class. So that's kind of the idea there. because none of this requires you to be standing in symbols or anything. It does require you to have retail, but you're going to have plenty of that while you're moving. So yeah, you just take retail on your heal skill. Nothing else here is really worth. Obviously, you could get the sword trait, but you won't have enough retail uptime without it, because yeah, this is a heavy retail duration here. 10 seconds on heal. So yeah, retail is way more important than anything else you could get. So just having that uptime is really important, especially because you take retribution now, which is a 10% damage increase when you have retail, which is pretty much permanent. And you take this instead of Lesser Signet of Wrath, because that's been nerfed to a 1 second immob duration. So it used to be 3 seconds, which was really good because you could land an insane burst combo into it. But now 1 second isn't really enough to do anything. By the time they realize that they're immobilized, they're no longer immobilized anyways, right? So you can land some of your burst anyways, right? And then they'll dodge right after. But yeah, the immobilize just isn't long enough. Obviously, you get Righteous Instincts, because that gives you 25% crit chance. And this is also another reason why you want Berserker Amulet, because before, when you're running Marauder Amulet, as you'll see here, your crit goes above 100% when you have you get Fury and Retail, right? And that gives you 97% crit chance, but then it goes over that when you have your target being burnt, right? So you have this trait here. Your ferocity is increased, and you have 10% crit chance when your target is burning, and you get burning a lot, right? So you get 97%, so you're wasting like 7% crit chance right there. But with Zerkami, you don't waste that, because, let me get retail again, because you have you waste 2% crit chance now, right? So you're wasting less stats with Zerkami. But yeah, basically Zerkami just wastes less stats. And there's also Valor, which is really important with the Zerk line. And it's basically just the meditations line. You gain Aegis sometimes, which is really nice with Unscathed Contender. You gain protection when you lose Aegis, which is kind of okay. Toughness, that's fine. But this trait is what's really important. Monk's Focus. So whenever you use a meditation, you heal for 1.4k, which is pretty good for the levels of healing and sustain that is out there right now. And so basically you're running 5 meditations, right? Like every meditation skill is really good for Guardian, and it's pretty much been meta for Guardian since the dawn of time. And yeah, just using meditations with Monk's Focus gives you so much sustain. And because the meta is more DPS oriented, your maximum health doesn't really matter as much as your actual sustain. So what you do is you keep yourself healthy with your meditations, and your heal skill is actually really busted too, because a lot of times it'll just full heal you, right? And a lot of classes nowadays, their heal skill won't really full heal them, right? So this heal does a lot. And obviously you don't have Marauders to see how much it can potentially heal. But yeah, it'll pretty much always full heal you. And you can just kind of like bridge the gap between that 24-second cooldown with all your other cooldowns and your mobility. And, renewed focus gives you 3 seconds of invulnerability, in which you can get more healing from Virtue of Resolve. And it's just, you have a really good sustain for a build that does insane damage. And I'll show you the damage. It's really good. So, yeah, those are the traits and everything. Obviously, you're going to start out, because you don't have the Immobilize, your combos are a little bit different, right? So you used to do like sword into F1 which would immobilize them, and then you do your Greatsword 2 right into that. Well, now it's a little bit different. You need to play around their dodges a little bit more. So you'd probably engage with sword focus, and then you start with the focus 4. Then you'd probably go in, you'd probably bait out a dodge or two with zealous defense, and then after they dodge, what you want to do is you want to port right on top of them, and then F1, and then auto attack a little bit. Maybe they'll dodge again. You immediately Greatsword 3 into them, and then you'll Greatsword 2, and then they might dodge again, and that's when you do Greatsword 5, and then you'll put down your Greatsword 4, and then you'll pull them into that, and then you'll Greatsword 2 again. You want to wait till the Greatsword 2 comes up to pull them into your Greatsword 4 with your Greatsword 5. And then, yeah, so you kind of like, what you're doing is you're playing around their dodges, right? So whenever they use an evasive ability, you'll immediately use like your Greatsword 3 to follow up right into the aftercast of their dodge. Or you'll use your Sword 2 into the aftercast of their dodge. And that way, if they want to avoid your abilities, they have to kind of like double dodge, right? So you want to bait out their dodges, and then you have to like attack right into their next dodge. And this is kind of how it is for all classes, to be honest. But now it's more so of a thing because you don't have the immobilize to really carry your burst. So yeah, that's pretty much how it goes for Core Guardian. It's a pretty simplistic class. As you can see here, the full healing of well, if you're in a team fight, you'd hit multiple people there, so you could get the full healing of Litany of Wrath a lot more often. But yeah, it heals for quite a bit in relation to other healing skills. The sustain has been really lowered for a lot of classes, but the sustain is still here for Core Guard for the most part. So yeah, it's a really good build in my opinion right now. And I was even like dueling a lot of like you guys know the Immortal Necromancer build that exists. I was dueling that, and I had so much sustain that I could just go through and like pressure them really hard, because like the build does so much damage, and if they want to stand on node versus you, they have to eat all of your damage. And I was getting their Shroud out really fast against this Core Necro build that is really tanky, because they can't really counter pressure you that much. So you can basically just do your DPS rotation, right? Because you just shrug off everything with Smite Condition, which now removes 3 condies. Even though it doesn't really do that much damage, it's a really high sustain skill now because it removes so many conditions. And the same thing for Condi Rev. You guys know the other meta build right now is Condi Rev. And you have a ton of Condi clear now with Core Guardian because it gave you an extra Condi cleanse here. I take Absolute Resolution. You have a full Condi convert with Contemplation of Purity. And yeah, your heal skill will also cleanse 2 Condis as well. Another Condi cleanse you can do is blasting your symbol. So as you can see here, area Condi cleanse. So that's another Condi cleanse. This is a combo finisher blast, by the way. One thing you can get is a leap finisher in one of your symbols, and that gives you light aura, which gives you incoming condition damage reduction, and you also gain retail whenever you're hit. So yeah, you have a lot of Condi reduction and cleanse on this build, and a lot of people are saying that it's a Condi meta. So this build, in a way, is very good for this meta, and especially in a meta that's Condi oriented, your health pool being low isn't that important because you can easily react with your cleanses before you die. Obviously vitality is the counter to Condis, right? But that's only if you don't have the cleanses for it. But this build has plenty of that. So yeah, there's not really too much burst in the game to really punish you for being so low in max HP. There are some anomalies out there like Sikkim Ranger, you gotta watch out for those. Rangers are always the counter to Guardians though, so it's not really a big deal to say, oh, you're countered by something that already countered you. You shouldn't really worry about that, right? Because you can't do anything about it. So just play around what you can play around. And yeah, in team fights, you can actually give your team quite a bit of support with core guardian, right? Even though you're not symbol brand, I'd say that symbol brand is probably still the most optimal build, but a lot of people don't really like playing that, right? This is a more, it's a different role for guardian, and it's definitely fun. So yeah, not really a new build, but this is a new version of it. So here it is. So as you can see here, there are quite a few 2v2 comps out there that are actually pretty good. It's just that the ones that came out first were very kind of easy to play and kind of passive, so didn't really take people much time to get good at them or to use them to their potential. But there's some really aggressive 2v2 comps out there that can be really good in my opinion, and Core Guardian is one of those. So yeah, maybe the meta is not as bad as it looks. Obviously it needs some help still with the balance. And yeah, like this video and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, and leave a comment down below if you're tired of playing Firebrand and you really want some new Guardian build to come out other than Symbolbrand.